All right, back here for game 5, playing for my pitiful one-game win for Pride. My hand is once again acceptable.
My hand is a little light on action, but I still think this is a keep.
Okay, because we're a little light on disruptive elements, I want to be able to probe Ross first before leading on this card, so we're going to go to 18 life.
Okay.
All right, 3 fetches, a ritual, a probe, a ponder, a duress. 6, 7. Draw a card. Nothing we can really accomplish by doing this turn, so we're just going to play a Dulver and pass the turn. We're not really in any threat of dying.
Yeah, I didn't really want to see a Delver on turn 1, but... Okay, that is not a bad draw. I'm going to start off with a probe myself, see what we're dealing with. So that is ponder. So really I have no idea what I'm dealing with.
Yep. Kind of the same on both sides. Might be reasonable that Ross just like duresses away our brainstorm.
Could duress away your therapy.
I don't think that's very good, since you have like a ponder and 2 unknown draw steps. The therapy's not particularly powerful, but I could be wrong.
I feel like you were going to brainstorm on your turn and then fetch in therapy. Possibly you just ponder though, and then just wait to brainstorm when your hand is a little bit worse. Yeah, I guess you likely know that I'm not going to play into Wasteland, and I have a hand that can easily play around it.
Right.
So the Wasteland's pretty bad in your hand. So that makes you likely to brainstorm.
I think that makes you want to duress with a brainstorm, but
the awkward part about casting duress this turn is that it makes me find a basic swamp, which is really bad when I'm trying to cast the cantrips on the next few turns. So I prefer to duress next turn.
Cantrips, you say?
Spent this entire time trying not to give you information. It's hard. So
yeah, so maybe Ross wants to go basic Island Ponder.
I'm actually going to go basic Island Pass.
Mysterious. Okay. I'm not actually sure what that means. What it probably means is that Ross drew a brainstorm and wants to be able to protect against Archibald therapy on the following turn. So I'll trigger Delver, hit a Force of Will.
That's pretty good.
Draw that. As Ross alluded to, I think this Wasteland is going to be a little poor, so it makes me more incentivized to cast our Brainstorm first. If he lets us resolve and we hit a piece of disruption, we can potentially fight Ross's supposed Brainstorm and then actually resolve this Cabal therapy. So I think that is pretty appealing. So I'm going to play Brainstorm.
Yeah, that resolves.
Okay. Again, I think I want to get rid of this card, and then the question is, I think it basically comes down to one of these two. The fact that this is a blue card makes me more inclined to throw this away, but this card is quite effective with this. So it's pretty close. Because of the fact that we're going to be firing this off on this turn means that we're not going to be able to trigger this card for quite a while, so I think it's worse right now. So I'm going to put those two back. I'm going to go ahead and play Mystery Enforced, attack for 3.
I'm at 14.
14?
Yeah, probe, fetch,
Okay.
attack.
And now we're just going to say go.
Okay, well, I'm going to use my mana and fire off this Brainstorm on end step.
I think because we want to protect this card, we need to just let this resolve, so I'm going to let it resolve.
Okay. Well,
if we'd hit like a Daze this turn, that would have been perfect, but...
this is definitely the card I want to be shuffling away, so that one's going to go back on the bottom, and then doesn't really matter what else is there. So, those two back.
I did want to make sure that I left this card on top specifically, just in case, so I was just checking that.
Done?
Yep.
Okay, now... I want to crack this fetch first. Go to 13.
One fetch left that we know of.
Get this basic swamp. And the question becomes how we want to order these 3 spells. We could continue to leave up to defend against therapy. We could try to just to go ham. That would involve clearing the way with this and then casting this and hoping to find something good with it. That seems much too aggressive, although we can take a more conservative path along those lines with these two this turn. That leaves us a little vulnerable to his ball therapy, although we could just play out our hand and still leave this. I think I would like to duress first.
Okay, I'm just going to spell Pierce, fetching an Underground Sea.
You're at 17?
Yep.
That is awkward. But it does mean that taking an aggressive line here is quite bad because of the existence of Force of Will. I can, so you've brainstormed to put 2 back and shuffle them both away.
Correct.
Assume Wasteland is one of them. I bet you found a card that's worse than Ponder. So I bet you have Ponder, Cabal Therapy, Force of Will, X. That does make me want to... So it makes me want to play this so it doesn't get therapied. And then just hold this and pass. This is going to be a tough one. It's Force of Will, Cabal Therapy, Spell Pierce, Flip Delver, which is basically what we talked about, like a couple disruption spells and a turn 5 to 7 win.
So you never actually played your Ponder, right? Yep. Okay.
I've never shown you a Ponder.
It was in your opening hand.
Did you write down Ponder? It was a preordain.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, similar, but yes, but yeah, you do. You know, I have this.
I knew you had a cantrip starting with a P.
You know these 3.
Yep. Well, yeah. Therapy. We'll just name Dark Ritual.
Hold on. Okay. I'll brainstorm in response to therapy.
You have 4 cards left.
Yep.
So I actually think it is worth...
Thinking about Force Willing this brainstorm?
I am. Okay, so We can choose to force the brainstorm pitching this, and then we have the option of playing this to either put more pressure on Ross or just to flashback the Cabal Therapy, both of which are fairly reasonable. Alternatively, we can pitch this, play this turn, and try to hit another piece of soft counter magic, but that seems a little sketchy to me. I do think because we have this Cabal Therapy and a clock, we want to just try to constrict Ross on resources very aggressively. So, let's see. We're going to be attacking him to 10 this turn, and if we played this card and just left it in play, we could potentially put him to 4. This is really close. If we let the brainstorm resolve, then like our therapy might miss, Ross's hand improves, and we do have a force of will and the option to just flash it back and hit something. Which isn't unreasonable either, but kind of get the impression that his hand is weak, so we'll just go ahead and force pitching the... I really don't know which one's better. Problem is if we keep this ponder, and even if we're able to ponder into a force of will, then we need an additional blue card for it to even work. The dazes would be fairly weak against LED. So I think it's probably just better to put as much pressure as possible. So I'll force pitching ponder.
16.
Yep.
So now I know nothing. Your therapy resolves.
All right, we're going to name Prurian.
Okay. Lotus Petals, the other card.
Yep. So kind of assumed that Ross has mana, but no additional action. So we're going to attack for 3.
Emit 10.
Play a second Delver, pass the turn.
Okay, well, we're going to have to draw some good cards. I think that counts. So now this is 3 mana, 4, 6, 9, 7. So we can empty for so we could with a tutor chain we could empty for 3 for 10.
A tutor?
I just ripped an Infernal Tutor.
Oh, okay.
So I can cast all my things and then Infernal Tutor and for another Infernal Tutor and then get empty for 10,
sure.
Which loses to any spell off the top of your deck. I can also get Past in Flames and then just try to Past in Flames with these cantrips into a kill. I don't have Ad Nauseam in my deck. I'm wondering if I Past in Flames, whether or not I want to Infernal Tutor for another Infernal Tutor so I can ramp up Storm Count. So let's think about what that does. So this is we've established that I can make 9 mana. This goes to 7 mana. Another Infernal Tutor would go to 5 mana, and then I would go to 1 to cast the Past in Flames. Dark Ritual brings you back up to 3 mana. And then I can use 1 Infernal Tutor to net back a mana and go up to 4 by finding a Lion's Eye Diamond, and that lets me transfer most of a mana into blue if need be. And then that would be 3 second Infernal Tutors, 4, Past in Flames is 5 Storm, Dark Ritual is 6 Storm, third Infernal Tutor is 7, second LED is 8, Probe is 9, and so then I would have 4 mana and 9 Storm with 2 Brainstorms, a Ponder, and a draw step off the Probe to try to kill. And essentially what the Tutor Chain did was add 3 Storm at the cost of a single mana. So we spent 2 up front to find the Tutor, and then it netted us 1 on the back end, and we cast it twice, and the LED we found off of it. So we've lost a mana and netted 3 Storm. So without the Tutor Chain, I would have Brainstorm, Preordain, and the Probe draw with 5 mana and 6 Storm. And I actually think that's better because we're going to need to probably find some mana off of these and then something good. and we can use the preordain and probe and preordain first, and then cast the brainstorms and filter through any dead possible draws we get off of those cantrips, and set our hand up with brainstorm to be just mana and the big spell we need to win.
If you were completely lost, you are not alone. I did not follow any of that.
I mean, it's just what sets up the Past in Flames better. So like finding a second Infernal Tutor costs 2 mana because you have to cast it.
Right.
But then on the back end, you get to tutor out of your graveyard for Lion's Eye Diamond, which nets 1 mana. So on the balance, you've lost 1 mana, but you've gained 3 Storm because you've cast that Infernal Tutor twice and the LED you found off the back end of it.
I have no idea if that's better.
I don't think it is.
I'll let you figure it out.
Because the mana is very important because we have all these cantrips, and the Storm isn't as important again because we have all these cantrips.
Right.
And I prefer to leave this land uncracked as long as possible to see if we can brainstorm without it, and I think that is possible because we have rituals and LED. So only need 1 Caleb. We need 3 lands. So the Petal is 1. Dark Ritual is 2. Brings us to 3 black. Hold priority with this Infernal Tutor. And sacrifice this for blue mana.
I thought you wanted to get another tutor though.
This might be awkward because we have 3 off this LED, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're gonna cast the Past in Flames with 3 mana floating. And yeah, and we want that mana to be blue, blue, black. And then I guess we'll use this 3 blue, and then we'll have blue, black plus the polluted delta.
You don't think just emptying for 1, 2, 3, 4? I guess it would only be 10 goblins.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I went through that earlier.
Yeah.
And if I were at if this Delver didn't exist, I think that would be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I were at 13, I think that would also be good.
Sure. No, I agree.
Instead, I would rather not do that. So, I guess the Tutor Chain does cost us a mana, but will end up netting us an extra blue mana to cast these cantrips. Because right now, because we're casting the Past in Flames with 3 mana floating and 1 has to be black, we're only going to have enough blue mana to cast 2 of these 3 cards, unless we find a Lotus Petal.
You also have a probe.
Yeah, the probe is free. So unless we find a Lotus Petal, we're not going to be able to cast multiple of those. I still think it's better to not chain tutors.
Yeah, I think your biggest bottleneck's mana, not storm count.
Yeah. Because we could also just find an Infernal Tutor off of one of these early tutors and use it to find another LED to net more mana, if we wanted to do that. So I will just find the Past in Flames after sacking this LED for blue. So I've cast 3 spells. Yeah, and then we'll use the blue and sack the Petal. Go to 4 Storm. And the first thing I'll do is flashback.
So isn't it better for you to keep an additional blue? Like, you can crack this for black if need be, whereas you know you're going to be playing 2 cantrips? Does that make sense?
Well, I want to save the fetch land because I have Brainstorm Disintegrate.
Right. So don't you want to keep an additional blue mana available?
I need to keep at least 1 black for the... you're saying I could just find a black mana off of this?
I think having blue mana up front is better.
That makes sense. Although having the black mana could let me Dark Ritual, Infernal Tutor. I could Infernal Tutor now, just to net mana, but that seems bad.
Well, I think you need to find something.
Yeah, I think my goal here is to just find more mana and use the Infernal Tutor to...
Yeah. So you want to lead on Probe.
And use the Infernal Tutor to end the game. So I go to 8.
Yep.
Storm goes to 5.
I have a Pyromancer.
Okay. Storm goes to 6.
Yep.
So now this is 7. You're at 16. Yeah, so now you're dead. I don't need to sack that. I can just go to 3 black. Yeah, this is 6 mana. I do need to sack this. So that's the Dark Ritual is the 7th Storm.
Yep. And then Tendrils will be 8.
Well, Infernal Tutor is...
oh, sure. So it'll be for 9.
Yeah. So I had 3 black and 1 blue. This finds a Underground Sea. The Dark Ritual is the 8th Storm. Use a blue and a black. This is 9th Storm. And then Tendrils is the 9th Storm.
Yep. All right, we're back here for the conclusion of Grixis Delver versus Storm. We went into the matchup saying that it was going to be close. But I think most of the games were close. It's just like there's a lot of like points where I needed one bad thing to not happen to me, and it pretty much always happened.
Yeah, I definitely ran above expectation in this set. I would say like, definitely games 1, 2, and 5. I think there were various points at which you were at least favored, if not significantly favored, and I managed to like find my outs in all 3. I think on the balance, I'm probably favored to at least get my outs in 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in most of the situations you were like a favorite. Also, I might have been a little rusty. I'm not sure if I sequenced like all of my cantrips correctly, and you know, there's lots of like tough decisions to make, and I think that's one of the greatest strengths of the Storm deck is that if you basically make any of the very small decisions incorrectly, you're just dead.
Yeah, there were multiple games where if you had been able to see my entire hand,
right,
then like you would have won. And there was even one game where you knew all but one card, and like that one card made you hesitate, and like you didn't spell pierce something, and you lost because of it, because it happened to be a therapy. And I mean, Storm, yeah, that's definitely one of the strengths of it.
It's extremely punishing.
It makes your opponent make a million little decisions, and they have to always counter the right thing, and they have to leave up counters on the right turns, and then there are just maybe 20% of games where it just doesn't matter what they do. If your draw is good enough, and you win enough of the games where they make one tiny mistake, it's basically impossible to play a perfect game of Magic.
Right. You'll probably notice throughout the games that I took, in general, I believe that my lines were very slanted towards the aggressive side. I do think that is the best way to play the matchup.
I 100% agree with that. I think for the most part, people are way too scared and unwilling to leave themselves vulnerable on turn 2, and instead they leave themselves vulnerable on turn 5.
Right.
And you're much more likely to be dead on turn 5 than turn 2.
Yeah. So, you know, a couple times I might have looked stupid because I just like made a play and then died, but I do think conceptually that is the correct way to play the matchup.
Exactly. Those are just those are the games that you have to live with. I know it sucks to pass the turn and like not
and like have a counter spell in your hand or whatever and then die, but I mean
it sucks even more when you cast all your counter spells and still die.
Right. But yeah, so I think that in general, even though maybe things favored Storm a little bit more in that set of games, that is actually how the matchup plays out. I think Storm is generally a little favored, and it's on the aggro control decks. Basically, it's their responsibility to play the games correctly, find the appropriate mix of both disruption and threats, which is extremely difficult to do, especially in such a short time frame.
Yeah, well, it's difficult to do because Storm doesn't give you a lot of time to durdle around with Brainstorms and Ponders.
Right.
It's easy if you get 2 turns to just cast those and sculpt your hand. And so if the Storm deck it comes out slow and isn't able to punish you for those things, then yeah, you can establish a clock, have all the right cards, and be able to take the game pretty easily. But
having to balance your mana between setting up your hand, presenting a clock, and defending is extremely difficult when you have access to like 8 mana over the course of the entire game.
Yeah. I mean, Sun Tzu tells you to not fight a war on 2 fronts. You're trying to fight it on 3.
Right.
That's even worse.
Exactly.
He's rolling over in his grave.
Yeah. So I think maybe it's important for Ross to maybe talk a little bit more about. Obviously, when he's actually trying to explain comboing off with Storm, it can get a little convoluted and confusing. So maybe you want to touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, I know it can be tough to follow, especially if you're not familiar with a lot of the mechanics of the Storm deck, like just running through the motions of casting your rituals, how much mana you have floating, and trying to figure out like what the best lines are, or even what the possible lines are, because there's usually there's probably 3 or 4 different basic ways you can go, either Past in Flames, Ad Nauseam, Natural Tendrils, or like some combination of the 3. I wrote an article after New Jersey that went up probably late November, early December. That was about a really complicated game and went through a lot of different lines. We will link to that below, and you can check that out. And if you have any questions about anything that happened in the games, please feel free to ask in the comments, and I will do the best I can to look back over the games and respond.
Because Ross absolutely loves talking about that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, it's great. I do really love it. Storm is just super fun. This like trying to fit all the pieces of a puzzle together. I definitely went through some of the lines a little quickly for the sake of time, and I knew going into this versus video that it was going to be tough for me to explain everything in as much detail as I would in a standard video, because giving away that information with Storm is just worth too much. Like, it would have affected the games to the point where they weren't relevant. And so I knew I had to keep a little bit more information to myself, which means giving less information to you guys watching at home. And so if you need me to clarify anything, please feel free to ask, and I will go through the comments regularly and field your questions with glee.
So, yeah, it was fun getting to play a little Legacy, even though I got absolutely stomped.
Yeah, it was more fun for me, I guess.
Yeah, but, you know, it still feels good to cast some brainstorms and think about that kind of stuff.
You won like 6 weeks in a row. It's just reversion to the mean
it's not going to be cyclical. You get the last two, but just give me some time. But yeah, so join us if you're have been playing Standard and Modern and you're looking to get your Legacy fix, then you can join us on the SG Tour next week in Philly.
This weekend.
Excuse me, this weekend. Yeah. I'm sorry. And CVM and Boswell will be back to do some commentating with that.
I wonder how Boswell is going to one-up himself from the last one. He was dressed so nicely. I've never seen a man look better in a suit.
Oh, he's just a suave. I can't say the word I want to say.
He's just so on point. It was ridiculous. He even had the pocket square.
He had the pocket square?
Yeah. I have to imagine that Boswell has like a collection of pocket squares. Okay. I bet he has like 6 or 7 of them. He's gonna have a different one every show. Is like everything's gonna match. Although I also like, I don't know.
I hope he doesn't watch this and like feel pressure to satisfy your expectations.
He's already got a lot of pressure with the gun show, wearing tank tops like when he's playing tournaments. Maybe he'll come out with a sleeveless suit. I don't know if SCG will let him do that, but that would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk to Cedric.
Yeah, maybe not in Philadelphia in March, but so when he's doing a show somewhere warmer, we'll put in a good word and see if we can get that set up for you guys back home. But yeah, please join us in Philadelphia, whether you are able to make it out to the tournament, which would be great, or watch at home. Should be a great time.
Yep, check us out on SG Live.
Yep. If you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to like, comment, share, whatever all those other things are that you do on YouTube.
Yeah. Watch cat videos.
Yeah. Well, you can, if you have 2 monitors, you can put a cat video on one and then
us on the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine watching. Well, yeah, I imagine that's pretty great.
All right. Well, that's all for this week. Thanks for watching. Ross handled our outro just beautifully. So, yeah, join us in Philly this weekend for some Legacy action. Y'all have a great day.